Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of We Citizens Action Network, I extend a warm welcome to all of you here in the hall and to all our online viewers. This afternoon, we have a very special panel discussion. But before we start with our proceedings, let me share a little bit about our organization, We Citizens Action Network, commonly known as WeCan. WeCan is a non-political and a not-for-profit public registered trust, and all donations are exempt under Section 80G of the Income Tax Act. Our overarching objective is to establish linkages between the citizens and the government. We work in partnership with the various statutory authorities of the government, and we pride ourselves that we are able to be the bridge between our civil society and our government and local bodies. To this purpose, WeCan also maintains a web portal, togetherwecan.in, which deals with multiple issues on a single platform. In order to make it easier for an interaction between the citizens and the government, we started what we commonly call the social sanchar. The social sanchar has as its motto, interact with your government from wherever you are. So we always say decongest Mumbai. So we always appeal for online viewers because online interaction helps in less commuting and making it easier. Now, with the social sanchar, you can send in questions live on WhatsApp, on SMS. The number is given in the invitation. And of course, those who are present in the hall can raise it here. I extend a warm welcome to the president of our venue partner, Mr. Vaswani. Please do come forward and take a seat. Thank you. It's with great pleasure that I would like to convey our grateful thanks to our support partner for this evening, this panel discussion, Spartan Engineering Industries, especially to Dr. Vikram Mehta, the Managing Director, for readily supporting our social sanchar. You had, and I say this to them with gratitude, that this is the second time that you are supporting us, and we look to a long-term association with you. Thank you, Spartan. We are very, very grateful to our club, where quite a few of our fellow trustees are members, our Royal Bombay Yacht Club, because they have been, this club has been our venue partner right from its inception of the social sanchar. Thank you, Mr. Vaswani, and all the committee members of the club. Thank you for supporting us. Our warm thanks are also due to our implementing partner, Citizens Association for Child Rights, commonly known as CACR, an organization which works primarily with the municipal schools and is also the urban partner of UNICEF. And especially, I am delighted to thank our young volunteers and our college partner, Jai Hind College, through their student council, which leads the team, and the NSS unit of Jai Hind College, which coordinates with other colleges as well. Thank you, Jai Hind. I thank our live streaming team, Team 1, our photographer, Mr. Abhishek Maiti, and especially our Team Technolegion, which keeps our portal going. And I warmly thank my ever-suffering assistant, Mr. Sumit Lula, who is always my shadow and also looks after our social media. Thank you, Sumit. I thank all friends in the media and especially all of you for joining us this afternoon. Your encouragement and your participation is actually our motivation to take all this work forward. I would like especially to acknowledge the presence of our new Chief Fire Officer, Mr. Sanjay Manjrekar of our Mumbai Fire Brigade. Thank you, Mr. Manjrekar, for being with us this afternoon and with your team. I would also like to thank Mrs. Sujata Sonik for being here, ma'am. Thank you for being with us. It's a good motivation, and we look forward to working with you. This evening's panel discussion is actually in continuation from our discussions which we had in October. Last month, we had a panel discussion, and wherein we touched upon the issue of accidental fires, primarily due to electrical unsafe practices, and hence this evening's panel discussion with a strong statement: electrical safety is non-negotiable under any circumstances. We have our Chief Electrical Inspector, Energy Department, Government of Maharashtra, coming forward to guide us and make us aware about the electrical overloading, cause of short circuits, other lapses which we may inadvertently cause, and also about the fire lifts and fire evacuation lifts and much more. All of us really need to know how to keep ourselves and our properties safe and secure. Let's not compromise on electrical safety and invite fires. We are grateful to have with us as our keynote speaker, Shri Praveen Pardeshi, who is quite known to all of us when he was our municipal commissioner, and for other reasons too. We will get into that in a moment. And I'm especially happy that Shri Ajit Kumar Jain, again a partner of many years, to be the moderator of the panel discussion. We have, once again, Shri Dinesh Khonde, Chief Electrical Inspector, Maharashtra State, with us. He was here with us in October. And we have Mr. Sunil Rathod, Chief Engineer Development Plan of our Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation, BMC. Mr. Rathod will tell us about this department, which I think many of us are quite clueless about. We have with us our great resource person and guide, Shri Arvind Mandke, former Chief Fire Officer, Thane Municipal Corporation and CITCO. He too was here with us in October. Now, with this, we believe that it is intended, post our panel discussion and the citizens' interaction, appropriate recommendations will be taken on record. And Mr. Pardeshi, we look to you for guidance as we go along, because quite honestly, electrical safety is quite an unknown issue, and which actually causes the main havoc. Our poor men in red and blue, our fire department, is always called in to solve the issues of fire, but we should see to it how we can prevent it in the first instance. So with that, I may now invite my fellow trustee, Mr. V. Ranganathan, who also is very well known to many of us here. Mr. Ranganathan was the former municipal commissioner of BMC, and he led the state of Maharashtra as the chief secretary, and now he is trustee with us in VCAN. We are indeed very happy to have him, and his guidance is always appreciated, and thank you, Mr. Ranganathan, for being with us. So I would request Mr. Ranganathan to share the significance of this afternoon's panel discussion, the subject. Thank you, Mr. Ranganathan.
See, what we find is, over the last few years, the frequency and intensity of fires in the city of Mumbai has been increasing. And apart from loss of life, enormous damage to property occurs. This is partly due to the global warming, which has generally led to increases in fires all around the globe. It is also due to the construction of a large number of high-rise buildings in which fire takes place on the 27th floor, and it's very difficult to tackle it. And general unawareness. So purpose of today's program is to create awareness and to initiate action on certain critical aspects relating to fire safety. the first question is, what does the state government have to do? In India, we have passed a number of laws on fire safety regulations. But the work does not end there. These laws are not getting implemented in the ground level. So first thing is, we found in the last panel discussion, there are hardly a couple of persons who are certified auditors for fire safety for electrical installations. So why can't we have a system whereby a number of persons, they may be private individuals, they may government servants, who are certified as fire safety inspectors, so that whenever a society or an owner of a building wants to make sure that his installation is safe, he can go to this inspector and get the facilities certified. This is number one. Second thing is, at the local municipal corporation level, what we found that they say that every year buildings have to be inspected beyond a particular age, then structural stability certificate, electrical stability certificate, etc. had to be produced. But we found that, madam, for 5 minutes, then we can. So we find that, in 99% of the cases, these inspections are not taking place. So what is the mechanism for enforcing it? Can you have a system in which you can say that if this inspection report of an authorized person is not produced by the building owner or by the society, there will be some kind of a surcharge on property tax or something of that kind? They should think of doing it. And third thing, what we find is, in individual societies, people are not aware of the need to maintain the fire safety systems in good conditions, or they are not taking it seriously. So the result is, when a building is completed, the contractor and the engineer who do the building, they manage to fulfill certain requirements, get the certificate from BMC. Then later on, we find that after the OC is issued, the things are neglected, and when a fire takes place, systems are not in place. So how do we have a system? In some countries, for instance, they have a particular day in a year on which in every institution they do a fire safety drill and make sure that things are in proper place. So that kind of a mechanism, I think, which may have to be developed for every society. Third thing is in regard to construction of buildings. What we find is that substandard wiring, substandard cable equipment is used. So how do we insist that only certified ISI standard material is used? And whether the capacity and rating of the cable is adequate to take the load. This is an issue which has to be done. Of course, there is a further follow-up action in the sense that after the building is constructed, people install air conditioners and washing machines and various devices indiscriminately. The load increases, but the wiring is not capable of holding it. So that leads to fires, etc. These are the issues which have to be sort of, discussed. And I think at the end of the day, we want to engage, come up with some kind of a solid plan of action in which, for instance, for societies, simple things like wiring should be kept in a proper format, there should be ventilation of the cable pathways, then see that rodents don't come and eat the insulation and cause fires by taking some adequate measures. These are the, and loose connections should be set right immediately. In many of the old buildings, when you particularly go in areas like Kalbadev and all, you will find all kinds of wires running crisscross here and there, all exposed. So these are the kind of things which I think we should come up with a plan of action and get it implemented. And with these words, I look forward to able guidance from Mr. Praveen Pardeshi, who is an expert in not only the system and is chairman of a committee, but he has also done outstanding work as district collector Latur when a massive earthquake hit the districts. And we also look forward to guidance from Mr. A.K. Jain, who has been additional municipal commissioner, who has also been associated with this. With these words, I would like to express my gratitude to you and look forward to fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ranganathan. A quick run through the format. We will first have our keynote speaker speaking, first with our moderator starting the panel, followed by our keynote speaker's speech. And then we will have the panelists in the order of Mr. Konde, Mr. Sunil Rathod, and Mr. Mandke. There will be then a citizens' interaction, and a summary will then be made by Mr. Jain, and thereafter we will conclude. A little bit about all our people who are here seated. About Mr. Jain, Mr. Ajit Kumar Jain was former Additional Chief Secretary and State RTI Commissioner. He is the founder director of IRAF, Environmental Research Foundation, and he also headed the working group on fire safety set up by the government of Maharashtra. We are very fortunate also to have Mr. Jain as a member on our panel of experts. Thank you, Mr. Jain, for being with us. With great pleasure, I share a little bit, very little bit, about Mr. Pardeshi. Mr. Pardeshi is the former Additional Chief Secretary of Maharashtra State, and he was the Municipal Commissioner of our BMC. Currently, he is the head of the Technical Committee on Safety Manual to respond to man-made disasters, Government of Maharashtra, and member administration at Capacity Building Commission, Government of India. So he's got one foot in Mumbai and better part of the time in Delhi, if I mistake not. With over 38 years of experience in the Indian Administrative Service, IAS, the UN, UNDP, UNISDR, UNITAR, Mr. Pardeshi has served in various senior executive roles. Along with his work in the IAS, Mr. Pardeshi has held senior leadership positions in the United Nations as the global head of the Post-Crisis Recovery Cluster, UNDP Geneva, and senior coordinator of UNISDR. This is a very brief introduction. It's quite long, and I think we'll put up a better one on our portal. Mr. Pardeshi, please do give us so that people will know a lot more about you. Anyway, he's the man to go to whenever there's a disaster, that's for sure. To my left is Mr. Dinesh Konde. Mr. Konde, thank you for being with us. He is holding the post of the Chief Electrical Inspector and heads the Electrical Inspectorate for the state of Maharashtra. He is entrusted with the responsibility of benchmarking safety standards in generation, transmission, distribution, and utilization of electrical power. He is also responsible for monitoring the realization of revenue generated to the state government, contributing more than 10,000 crores through electricity duty and tax on the sale of consumption, and serves as an appellate authority under Section 127 of Electricity Act 2003 for the dispute cases arising due to unauthorized use of electricity. That's another big question mark, unauthorized use. To his left is Sri Sunil Rathod. He is the Chief Engineer Development Plan, a department which, Mr. Rathod, I would request you to share is how it functions and what is its role in our BMC. Sri Arvind Mandke, our very dear resource person and guide. Mr. Mandke is retired Chief Fire Officer of Thane Fire Brigade and CITCO Fire Department. He is a product of National Fire Service College in Fire Engineering and holds GD1 and MI Fire UK certifications, besides being a qualified safety engineer. He has worked more than 33 years as CFO in Thane Fire Brigade and more than 6 years as a CFO in CITCO Fire Department, with more than 38 years experience in firefighting, fire prevention, and training. Having actively participated in framing the policy related to this field, he is a regular faculty member for National Fire Service College to train the fire engineers and Architecture College as well, as regularly presenting the papers in national and international seminars in fire engineering subjects. So we have a trainer and a teacher in our midst. Thank you, Mr. Mandke, for being with us once again. Thank you. I would now request Mr. Jain to please set the panel discussion going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Malkani. I'm really delighted to be here in your midst on the occasion of the second social sanchar on the subject of fire safety. I'm really privileged to be in the midst of, on one hand, Mr. V. Ranganathan, and on the other hand, Praveen Pradeshi, my dear colleague, Sujata Saunik, and all the esteemed panelists. In fact, when Mr. Ranganathan introduced the subject, I was reminded of the days when he used to work as the municipal commissioner and I was his additional municipal commissioner. And whenever the meeting used to start, he used to prepare a long list of items in green ink. And today I saw his paper, all the items he mentioned at the beginning were still written in the green ink. And sir, with due respect, the expectation was that now start implementation. So he is a man of action, a very hard taskmaster, but a very, very respected senior officers. So I'm really privileged to be seated next to him. And Praveen, of course, I mean, he has been introduced, and he is in a very, very key position at the moment as the chairperson of a committee set up by the government of Maharashtra to look into or to prepare a manual on man-made disaster. And incidentally, I'm also a member of which Sujata has set up a committee on good governance in which fire safety is also one of the issues. So there's a lot of convergence that I can see happening. So I'm really privileged to be here. And many of you I have been knowing for so many years, so it's really good to be here. Now coming to the main subject, we all know that fire safety and electrical safety are very intrinsically connected to each other. And if electrical short circuit is the main cause of majority of the fire incidents, the only way we can prevent fire accidents is to take care of the electrical systems in our building or in other kinds of establishment. When the working group on fire safety was set up by the government of Maharashtra in 2019, and I happened to head that group, our recommendation was precisely this, that the system of electrical inspection and fire inspection should go together. Whenever a fire officer or a license agency of the fire department goes out to inspect a building, then they should compulsorily have a qualified electrical engineer in their team, and vice versa. The second point that we suggested was that the inspection formats of both fire department as well as electrical safety department should be slightly modified or tweaked, as the word is used these days, to include the electrical and fire safety features. And the third thing that we recommended was there should be institutional convergence of the agency that are handling fire safety, that is the fire department of government of Maharashtra or in the MCGM or other local bodies, and the department which is handling the electrical safety. So these were three key recommendations. The other was, series of recommendations related to this. So I'm really happy to be part of this deliberation. And now, without much ado, I think I'll hand over the mic to my first panelist of the day. Sorry, I'm really sorry, that was the earlier format. So, Mr. Praveen Pradeshi. Over to you, Praveen.
Thank you, sir. So it's really a privilege to speak today at this weekend forum. So first I must thank Mrs. Malkani for arranging this linkage between government and citizens, because that's something which is always, which strengthens both government and citizens. And you put it very nicely that this creates that linkage. So thanks for that. And the issue that you have taken up is also very critical. Of course, I must say a few words. I have worked under Mr. V. Ranganathan, my first posting as CO, and really a tough taskmaster. And we used to, he's one of those IS officers who knew everything, what's going on, and he would ask you very precise questions. And if you couldn't answer them, you would feel like going through the floor. So we were tried to be very well prepared, but never as thoroughly as he was about our job. So it's again a privilege to be here, and of course, we always looked up to him both as Chief Secretary and as the Municipal Commissioner. Mr. A.K. Jain has been working on various issues, including on water resources, but the latest one on fire safety. When I was municipal commissioner, he came up with a lot of suggestions, some of which we could recommend, one of which was to integrate with the electrical department. You know, the great thing about Sujata, she is looking after administrative reform, but she herself volunteered that she will support this committee, and she has been such a great help because she's looking at it from the governance viewpoint and how we can improve governance on this. So having said this, let me start the main content of what I wanted to say today, and if we can just have the presentation. You want me to stand up and speak, or just, it's just, yeah, it's comfortable. Yeah. So, but just put, yeah. So I'm just starting with this. We talked about governance. And if you can think of, currently my major job is in Mission Karmyogi, which the Honorable Prime Minister has set up to convert Karmcharis into Karmyogis. It's very important, the words. So what does Karmchari mean? What is it, if you break up the Sanskrit of Karmchari, what does it mean? Can anybody make a guess? Karmachari. Think? अपना संस्कृत में बहुत ज़्यादा डीप में जाके शब्द बने हुए हैं, बहुत डीप में बना हुआ है. एनी गेस? हाँ, बिल्कुल करेक्ट. आचार मतलब रूल्स नहीं, रूल्स, आचार संहिता, रूल्स, और जो रूल्स के अनुसार काम करता है, आचार के अनुसार, आचार संहिता के अनुसार काम करता है, वो कर्मचारी. तो हमारे सब सरकारी सेवक ये कर्मचारी इसलिए बन गए क्योंकि हम सिर्फ नियमों का अनुपालन करना ये हमारा कर्तव्य समझते थे, और वो कर्मयोगी नहीं है. कर्मयोगी नीचे है अर्जुन. तो अर्जुन को सिर्फ चिड़िया क्या आँख दिख रही थी. तो कर्मयोगी वो है जो अपने गोल, वो नियम, इफ यू फॉलो सर्टन रूल्स एंड दोज रूल्स डोंट टेक यू टू दैट विजन और दैट गोल, then you are not a karmyogi, you are just a karmchari. And that is the problem that India and many bureaucratic societies are grappling with, that we follow all the rules and yet we end up with what Mrs. Malkani is telling and all of us citizens suffer from. And as what Mr. Ranganathan was saying, the frequency of fires have gone up. And I can tell you that, just to explain, Mr. Sunil Rathod is a very important person. You don't have many builders in this room. They all know how his department works. His department is far more, to get him in the room is a very big privilege. He looks after every single building permission in the city. So, but my point was something else, that most of the files, Mr. Ranganathan will agree, I think Mr. A.K. Jain will agree, that most of the files which go through on building permissions, they all adhere to the Karmachari part, which is that is for a formal permission, it's almost impossible that anybody gets away with anything which is in breach of the development control rules. And the development control rules are big books, which our Professor Unge, sitting in the back, now he advises our urban development secretary, will tell there are such big books. And despite those such big books, there is a computerized system by which we ensure that all those rules are followed. So if all those rules are followed, then why are there fires? Some of you got the reason right, but we as a system have focused on building codes and development control rules. So what are development control rules? We think that if the chief fire officer gives the NOC for making a building from the fire safety point of view. But what is the fire safety point of view that he is giving it from? Any guess? It's very important for us all to know this. He gives the fire NOC from a very important point of view. Doesn't help us though, that's my point of view. Any guess? He does a very thorough check, he has a format, and he ensures, most of the time, their staff ensure that what is written in the rules is followed. He ensures that his work is done. What is his work? After the, yes, would you please say it? So his aim is to ensure, in fact his work is to ensure that when the fire comes, I should have access to it. And that's all he does. He ensures that his fire brigade can go there, that people can be rescued, and people can come down the steps. Are we interested in that? Why should we have a situation where we have a building which has every single modern innovation, all these big new modern buildings which get built up, or modern public sector buildings, and still we have to provide all these provisions for the event of how to be rescued. And that's what he does. He does rescue. He doesn't stop the fire. He rescues you from the fire. So now I just want you to point out some of the provisions which are entered in a bulky way as a part of fire safety. So for example, all residential buildings above a certain size or height will say how wide the steps should be. So if all the buildings, including Mantralaya which had fire, do have steps of this size, then stop the fire. There are so many educational institutions, but I think a lot more from the hospital's point of view. Again, in hospitals we have very detailed provisions, how high the hospital should be, how many patients it can look after, then how many stairways it should have. It should have more than one stairways in height, and all these provisions are there. But you all know that that will only help you to save. And you know the other point which Mr. Ranganathan mentioned, safeguarding lives. And so here property is already assumed that if the fire has burned the building down, we don't care for it. Only thing we'll try to save is save people. Of course that's important, but the first thing is why should there be a fire? And by the way, I'm also speaking on behalf of the investment which goes in India in construction. It's one of the most important sectors in India, which drives employment and growth. And what this does is, it adds cost without any commensurate benefit. For example, if you provide many more stairways, you provide many more refuges, it's good, but it's good because when the fire happens, then it's good. But why should the fire be there? And these are very costly solutions, like all of us. And that's why what happens, the same sort of provisions apply to the mercantile buildings. And I'm just going to come last to this particular provision, which is there for all buildings. Again, this is a very ideal thing. What does it say? Can anybody read? It says how the fire brigade should go around. So we are already assuming that all buildings will catch a fire, and therefore we should provide for a huge road which goes all around it, and I think there should be also 2 big roads of a certain size on both sides so that the fire brigade can come there, so that their work can be eased. But whether it is health systems or whether it is, you were talking about the fire chute system, now we are moving towards fire tower. Again, a provision to evacuate people quickly once the fire happens. So what we did in our committee is, we looked at the main cause of fires. And if you look at this main cause of fires, the biggest bar of the total calls is due to electrical failures. But this, nobody has brought it out in this way. The second, I mean, if I'll just go back to, these are the causes, but if you look at the percentages, roughly 69% of all fires are due to failure of electrical installations in Mumbai, and that's true for much of the state. I was Collector Latur when a fire took place in a sugar factory because of the bagasse, the old bagasse caught fire. But those are rare cases. Most of the cases where people die happen because of electrical circuitry. The second highest cause is domestic leakage, which is hardly 2%. So if you fix this one cause, we have fixed most of the fire incidents. So this is the biggest thing, and this is true for across. We did a similar study for incidents in Pune and other places. This percentage is roughly right. Now, if we go further, today my main message, that's why I asked to speak before, because they will tell you what needs to be done. But if this meeting achieves with one message, and that message is this, that there is an agency in the United States which looks at disaster management. It's called FEMA. It does one of the real, most advanced work on disaster management. Now, disaster management has a cycle. And the cycle is the last thing we all pay attention to. That is disaster response. You know, when an earthquake takes place, as Ranganathan sir was telling, we all did a reasonably good job in responding to it. So that earthquake was 6.7 on the Richter scale. And it caused roughly around 9,000 losses of life, and more than 1 lakh or 100,000 houses were destroyed. But you know, I worked after that for many years in the international disaster management institutions like UNISDR and UNDP. So they have a very strange term, and I'd like you to decode that term because this has got a direct relationship to this. So when I worked in UNISDR, UNISDR is called now United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Organization. What they say is in the whole world, there are no natural disasters. There is no natural disaster. There is only man-made disasters. Every single day. So then somebody will ask us, "Arey, earthquake took place." There's an earthquake. The earthquake is not caused by man. It is caused by nature. The cyclone took place, or the typhoon took place in Japan. That's not caused by man. But they say, no, even that cyclone and the earthquake is man-made. So, and now I know that's true, but there is a way to prove this statement. So if anybody who's not Shidat is here, but anybody other than Shidat, if you can tell me, okay, why even fire, of course, is man-made, but that's very obvious. But all hazards, all disasters are man-made, all, earthquake included. So how is it? Yeah.
Somebody who is reading that made imbalance with the nature. That is the cause of that.
But earthquake, how does it happen? It happens from deep geology, so we may not have done anything.
If the earthquake happens, the preventive measures or the mitigation measures can help you to bring down the...
So this is the main reason. The best way to imagine this is, the earthquake took place in Latur and it caused around 9,000 deaths. Can you imagine the same earthquake taking place in Pokhran, in Jaisalmer, where there nobody is living? Will anybody die? So why did people die in Latur? Because they built homes which couldn't withstand the earthquake. So the statement starts from here. FEMA did a study which says that every dollar invested in prevention saves 13. That is 13 times more in terms of after the disaster rescue, relief and rehabilitation. This is exactly the story of our electrical fires. The provisions that we are going to talk about, and Mr. Khonde and the other people will talk about, especially Mr. Khonde, and it's really good that he's here, they cost so little compared to what happens if the fire takes place. One of them is to provide a road all around. The second one is to provide a fire tower. Third one is to have very broad strip. Just these provisions are so much more costlier than simply getting the electrical installations right. They are not even 1:13. They would be 1:100 in terms of cost. So prevention is the way to go to save lives and save property. Because after the fire, at least the property is not saved for sure. Now let's look at it, that what do we do? These are all various measures which I think Mr. Khonde will talk about, and I will not go into this, right from low grade, substandard wiring to damaged insulation. But there is a very important issue here which my first lesson is prevention is better than cure. And in terms of fire, the prevention doesn't lie in DCPR. This is the mistaken belief. Prevention lies in electricity, which is not under the DCPR right now. There are no DCPR provisions regarding electrical fittings. This is my first message. Now the second message is equally important, which I'll just come to. So these are all the reasons. And we know a lot of them. These are some of the pictures that they have taken in their analysis. I'll not go in. These are some of the regulations which provide for enforcement that electrical installations should be so that they don't cause a fire. Okay. All of these are coded in the various electrical rules. So if we follow all these regulations, fire is not going to take place. Now I want to come down to who are the key stakeholders. If those regulations have to be followed, then who will make it happen? So one of them is, of course, the architects and the electrical consultants who design it. The other is the local civic authorities. But today, all these people put together, again, if they work as karmcharis, that is, they work as rule-bound people, even then all the fires will continue to take place. So again, this is my last question. I have no more questions. Why so? I'm just saying that the architect, the electrical consultant, the electrical inspector, and the local civic authority, forget about corruption and all that. They all follow the rules. And all those regulations which I am telling you in the regulations are enforced. Despite that, we still will not be able to reduce the intensity of fire. And if anybody wants a hint, Mantralaya fire is an example exactly of that. But any guesses? Because a lot of you people know a lot about fire. So my point here is very important, that even if you enforce all these provisions which are there in the past, these ones, all these provisions, all these regulations, you still will not be able to stop the fire. You got it right. That's all. So, absolutely right. So this is the real reason why all fires are taking place. It's not that when the building is designed and when the installation of electrical installations did take place, I'm not talking about slum areas or informal, unauthorized constructions, because that's a different piece of law. There are different issues involved. I'm not getting it. I'm talking about formal buildings. We are talking about fire in buildings which are authorized, which are permitted. Despite that, fire is taking place there, and why? And if we can solve that issue, we'll be able to help the unauthorized buildings also. That's how I'm coming from. So his issue is right, that at the point of installation, at the beginning, the installations are right. They have conformed to most of the rules. But periodic doesn't take place. Now here comes a big problem for India. One way to do the periodic is to do what? The gentleman sitting next to Mrs. Malkani. He's very powerful, by the way. One of my friends told me that the most important thing in Mumbai is the lift inspector, because they can stop every single building, and every builder has to be careful. And that time there were just a few people who could inspect the lifts. And can you imagine the number of buildings that are there in Mumbai and number of lifts? And if he refuses the certification of one or two buildings, building just comes to a standstill, isn't it? So that's the main issue here. The main issue is, on one side we want more inspections, more compliance. But we don't want one person with his empire to become so powerful that he brings all of us to a standstill. We all do that, by the way. So I'm not saying, I'm just mentioning him, but including myself or including all of us who have exercised unnecessary power at the time of being officials. So fortunately, things have changed now. And this is my main message for today. So whether all these provisions which exist, they don't need to be enforced. My numbers are wrong here, I checked, and so CEI has roughly about 400 engineers. But he has only 400 people for the whole state of Maharashtra. How many buildings are there just in Mumbai alone? So what did the Act do? Act said that, okay, you just inspect buildings above 11 kV. That is a power load above 11 kV, which are very big buildings and all. But most of the fires are taking place in other buildings, and he doesn't have the authority to check them annually. And suppose we give him the authority, it will lead to too much of corruption and too much of centralization of rule making. So what we have thought about a lot, very carefully, and this is something which I want to open up for all of you, it's not needed. One of the things that we did in the last government, that there used to be one boiler inspector, and there are more than 1 lakh factories in Maharashtra alone. And that one boiler inspector had the power of life and death on all factories who have boiler safety. And you know what happens. So what did we do? We said, okay, every engineering college can be accredited to provide the boiler safety, other than the fire. So what happened when Air India came along with Indigo, Air Asia? So you have choice between all of them. So that's what we are trying to do. So for a population of 1 lakh, they should certify chartered engineers. They should certify them. And the aim should be that every year a building above 500 people, if you can't go after every building, but any building which has more than 500 people should have to give an annual fire safety, not from his office, but from some of the accredited private people. And if that fellow is charging too much, you have 10 or 12 electrical inspectors to go to. Now let's see that people don't give this certificate. Then what do? You tell the electricity provider that if in every year the annual safety certification has not come, you give them a notice of 1 month. If they fail to do the corrections, you just switch off the electricity. Everybody will come running to get that thing. How much does it cost, by the way? Is this a big cost? No, this electrical safety certification may not cost more than 10 or 20,000 rupees. And the rectifications that he may suggest are very simple things which he will talk about, right from better insulation to better control room where all the switch gears are kept, to ensuring that if there has been overloading, to either increase the load. So these are the sorts of measures, all of which cost a few thousand rupees for them. But for want of doing that on an annual basis, this is the key part. Annual basis, fires, what happens? Risk builds up. The risk builds up sequentially over many years, and then one fine day, it leads to a fire. So this will also create lots of jobs for people who are electrical engineers who can go around doing the chartered, like architects today have, and they can certify this. And the electricity provider, it could be the private electricity or MSEB, should have a mandate that if this annual certification is not submitted to it by any large buildings, they can give a notice, give them 1 more month to comply, and if they don't comply, so if one day the electricity is switched off, everybody is going to go and get it done within the next 1 month. So for me, this is the best way that we can enforce both the regulations. And today we are chasing after whether that person did the building construction properly, whether he did this thing. All of that doesn't help. It only helps to maybe rescue people, which is important, and we need to do that. But that is after the fact that the fire has already taken place, and we don't want the fire to take place. And we can prevent it because 70% of all fires take place only on one ground, electrical short circuiting. I'm finished. Thank you.
Mr. Pardeshi, thank you so very much. Really, thank you so much. You always engage people in the way that we have no choice but to make sure that it goes right into our head. You did the same when you were our guest speaker in your capacity as Municipal Commissioner. I remember in November, as a matter of fact, 27 November 2019.
Almost a year ago.
2 years. We forgot the COVID. Yeah. COVID took life out from us with the time. It's time.
Ask a question very badly, so.
Yes, we will come to a question in a moment. Yes, but before that, let's see a short video. Gives us a reality check. May we have the video, please? So whilst we get rescued, let's not have fires, please, if you can help it. Okay, Mr. Jain, all yours. The panel, please.
I think this video was pretty effective, but as mentioned, prevention is better than action after the fire accident. We now come to the first panelist, after the keynote address, Mr. Dinesh Khonde, who is the Chief Electrical Inspector of the Government of Maharashtra, and he's going to talk about the electrical safety, as has been brought out very effectively by Mr. Pardeshi. Electrical safety is the key to prevention of fire incidents. So over to you, Mr. Khonde, for your presentation.
Thanks.
Yes.
Honorable dignitaries on panels and off panels, firstly, I acknowledge my sincere thanks to VCAN for giving me this opportunity again to be here. Thank you. So today is the electrical hazards and the fire hazards are the very burning issues. So the time has come to how to deal with these issues, particularly in a practical manners and in a preventive manners. So our presentation is about all those things. What precautionary measure has to be taken to prevent all those things, particularly the electrical hazards and the fire hazards. Next. As far as the state regulatory authorities concerns, our vision is to save the human casualties and the loss of property. So what are these? Our objective is to implement and administrate the electrical safety standards and the regulations. So what are the root cause of the particularly the electrical hazards? If you go through these slides, we'll see there are the very specific parameters which leads to the electrical hazards. The lack of periodical maintenance and use of low-grade substandard materials, and particularly the overload and clumpy electrical installations. The overload is the basis of all, particularly the cause of the electrical hazards. Then there are other parameters also: improper ventilations, ineffective earthing, confined meter rooms, connection, all, and poor vent terminations. This is the part of the workmanship itself only. The voltage surges and loss of neutral. This is the quality of power supply basically. Then damage insulations from overheating, structural works or rodents, and load unbalancings. So these are the root cause of the electrical hazards. So as we see that, who are the stakeholders' responsibility as far as the electrical safety is concerned? So we see that the key stakeholders, particularly the architect and the MEP consultants. MEP consultant means mechanical electrical project consultants. So both what are the responsibilities of particular architectures and the consultant to comply the provisions of the NBCs, particularly, and we comply the provisions of all the regulations also. The next stakeholder is the electrical contractors. So what is the responsibility of the electrical contractors? Must comply with the provisions of all the Indian standards and the safety regulations. The next come the electrical inspectors wing and the CSE. So what are the responsibility of these stakeholders? The periodical inspections and to monitor all the safety regulations. And lastly, the most important, the licensee and the residents. The licensee means all the distribution licensee who provides over the electrical connections and services, and residences, those who are living in the flat itself only. So what are the responsibility of this licensee resident? To ensure that the safe maintenance and operation of their installations particularly. So as Pardeshi sir also says that what prevention is better than cure. So what precautionary measure has to be taken to overcome all this situation of overload and short circuits? So if you go for, we have already divided our presentations in the 4 regions particularly. So what has to be done at the planning and design stage? So planning and design stage, it just comes under the substation layout, meter rooms location also. So where to have a location of the transformer substations, where to locate the main control rooms, where to locate the meter rooms, where to locate the shaft basically. So this has to be done in a very preliminary manner at the very working stage only. So it is the responsibility of the architect and the consultant to relocate to locate all this equipment, all this entity at appropriate locations only, with the proper specification and proper space itself only. Sufficient, particularly we see that if you are using if you are providing the transformer at the basement, so we'll suggest that in basement direct or transformer shall be used invariably. No oil filled transformer shall be located at the basement only. Then the design of electrical shaft must be adjacent to the meter cabin room. So the orientations of the shaft is also very important aspects at a very design stage. So it is the responsibility of the architectures and the consultant to place the electrical shaft at the appropriate locations. Then overhead power lines, we'll see that there is a huge constructions in the vicinity of the EHV power lines. So this is also very dangerous situations if you are going to construct buildings. If the space constraint, the space is very important, particularly in the Mumbai and the metro regions. Every inch and every square foot matters. So basically, as far as the meter room is concerned, so we place most of the time that meter room below the staircases. So but definitely the meter room below the staircase is not actually adjustable. We won't accept the meter rooms below the staircases, panel room below the staircases. So we should have a very definite location of the meter room. The specification of the meter room must be very has to be precise. What are the dimensions of the meter rooms? What is the orientation of the meter room, in and out? Okay. So meter room is one of the sole, particularly of the electrical installations. The next is that what are the switch gears we are using, particularly in the electrical systems, to prevent all these electrical hazards, specifically the overloads and the short circuits, the ELCB and the MCBs. So these are the two things. If you go to the ELCB, it is just provided for the earth leakage protections, and where to provide, how to provide, and why it is required only. So it is the responsibility of the electrical consultants. Then the MCBs, basically, MCB is required for the overload and the short circuit protections. Okay, then the MCCB. So all these is the material, ELCB, MCB, MCCB has to be procured and installed properly as per the design specifications to prevent overload and short circuits. And electrical earthing. So that the electrical earthing, it's also very important. So electrical earthing plays a very crucial role as far as all the protection scheme is concerned. So how your earthing should be, it should comply the provisions of the IS 732. Okay, shall be well preserved. Okay, and shall be kept wet at all the times. You will see that our earth pits in our buildings, in our premises, it is nobody bothers about the earth pit over the period of times. So it requires a periodical maintenance. It requires that your pit should be wet all the times. Now the chemical type earthing preferably you are using right now. You see that how the earthing is very important. Earthing is important. You see, for any electrical installations, the earthing is important. Just to have all the equipments, all the appliances must work at a zero potentials. Okay. In case of any faults, okay, all the electrical fault current shall dissipated properly. You see example, the earthing is required for the electrical installation also. I am telling you that earthing is required for the aeroplane also. You see that why the earthing is required for the aeroplane, and then how we can earth the aeroplane. Okay, so when the aeroplane flies in the air, okay, when it's take off. So when the aeroplane flies in the air, so there is an ionization of the air. Okay, there is an ionization of the air took place, and or the depositions of the electrostatic charges on the body of the aeroplane itself only. So when the aeroplane get landed, no, so prior to the landing, that all the electrostatic charges which are deposited on the plane itself only, it shall be get discharged. It is very essential to discharge all the electrostatic charges. So there is a mechanisms in the that wheel of that aeroplane itself only, when it get lands, all the electrostatic charges get discharged through all this mechanism. So the earthing is very essential, important part of any electrical installation system also. You see that how the earthing is important for the aeroplane also. You see the electrical shaft itself only. The electrical shaft, so at a very design aspect, we see that why the electrical shaft is required, why it should be dedicated electrical shaft is there. It shall be independent, separate shaft shall be used for the electrical purpose only, we'll see that there are a number of other services laid down through the electrical shafts, particularly all the communication systems are there, gas pipelines are going along the electrical shafts, then the water pipelines going along the electrical. So what precautionary measure has to be taken? Only the electrical services, only electrical wires, only electrical cable has to be run through the electrical shafts. And the provision has to be made, particularly no flammable material shall be stored in the shaft itself only. The number of casualties which took place in the last year also, the main cause of the storing up all the flammable material in the shaft itself only. The casualty which took place at the Tardo itself only, the basic cause of is that all the flammable material, particularly the paint, was stored in the shaft itself only. So no flammable material shall be stored in the shaft. And the electrical wiring, and so all your distribution shall be carried out as per the provisions of the IS 732. What is the workmanship particularly? The electrical contractor is particularly responsible for the workmanship or the electrical distribution systems. So there is a scale of fitting also. How to lay the wires, particularly in a PVC conduits. So there is a scale of fitting. If the conduit is of the 20 mm dia, okay, and how many wires shall be drawn through the 20 mm dia pipe only? So there is a calculations depending upon the size of the PVC pipe and the number of wires. So one has to follow the scale of fitting itself only, just to prevent all this overloading. Then particularly in the fall ceiling itself only, if we are much more concerned about the interior designer, interior architectures and the fall ceilings. So nobody bothers about how to draw the wires and the cables and the PVC pipes, particularly between above the fall ceilings and between the slabs. So there should be a sufficient space between the slab and the fall ceiling so that we can easily draw all the rigid PVC pipes and the wires itself only. So there should not be any. So we can definitely avoid the possibilities of the short circuits. Then what are the responsibility of the licensee? Once you avail the connections, okay, the quality of the power supply. So it is the responsibility of the licensee to avoid any sort of casualty, particularly the electrical hazards. The quality of power supply matters, particularly the balancing of loads to consumer all the times. Particularly if you go particularly in the hospital areas. So if you operate your CT scan or the MRI, so it will definitely affect your other appliances. Once you start your MRI machines or the CT scan, so it gets fluctuations. Okay. So why the fluctuation took place? Because the system is not that much of perfect only. There is not load balance properly there. Neutral is not properly grounded. So all these parameters leads to the voltage fluctuations, and that voltage fluctuation leads to the electrical hazards. Maybe due to any fluctuation get the short circuits of the appliances. So the quality of power supply has to be the luminaire is there, fan is there. So this is the ideal situations with the energy meters of 30 ampere capacity and having the fuse of MCB or 32 amperes. Okay, the fuse and MCB is particularly for the overload and short circuit protections. What happened? Just now, sir tell ki we are going addition on additions. We overload the circuits. So there is a temptation, particularly in the Mumbai regions, the atmosphere is very humidity. Okay, so everybody needs the air conditioning by default. Okay, so it is not a temptation, but it is the need of the the weather condition. We need air conditioning in each bedroom also, in hall also. So what will happen with this arrangement? We are going to add one more AC here only. So if
all the fires that at least I have seen as municipal commissioner, right from Mantralaya fire, it's because of this one reason. Yeah. That's why at the point of installation, it doesn't matter. It is the incremental load which is added continuously, both for AC and other purposes, which is causing. And that can only be controlled by annual checking and at the point. And that is the main thing. That is the crux of the whole issue.
Basically, AC is concerned. So AC is required the more space. The AC required the space inside the flat also and outside the flat also. If you want to install the outdoor units, so outdoor units requires a very huge space, particularly. Okay, as far as the 1 ton AC is concerned, the dimensions of the outdoor unit is very bulky. Okay, moreover, it requires a clear space behind the outdoor units. So there is a lot of heat exchangers on the outdoor units. So there is a clear spacing. If there is no spacing at the outdoor units, so you won't get the cooling effect also. Okay. So all those things, the addition of all the appliances, the addition of all the incremental loads, then the use of all the non-ISO materials, if the workmanship is not poor, or so it leads to the various hazards, particularly electrical hazards, overload and short circuits. So it is very difficult to monitor physically each and everything. So as sir told me that I am having the inspected wings of around the 400 engineers, and as sir suggested that we need only 100 engineers for the CEI. So it is my humble request to sir that instead of reducing my number of engineers, if we can have such type of mechanisms there, if we can have such type of,
We should accept that
Yeah.
Maharashtra is the only state amongst all 26 states which allowed for chartered private engineers.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yes.
that's revolutionary and they
Yes.
have done that. That's good. Only we need to increase the numbers to
Yeah.
fulfill the demand.
Yes, sir,
It
yes.
cannot be done at taxpayers' cost with people being hired because that's not possible
Yeah,
anymore
yeah.
now. So that was my main point.
so we have taken your suggestion also, and we are trying to increase the number of CS in the state itself also. So one should have the very automated mechanisms. How, if you want to monitor your electrical installations periodically or round the clock. For example, if you want to monitor your electrical installations by default 24/7, so there is a mechanism now, the IoT-based device. So what is IoT-based device? The installation of microcontroller-based smart protection device that is used as early detection warning systems, which shall monitor the detection of abnormalities arising in the electrical systems. So there are the 13 types of faults are there particularly, protections are there particularly as per the provisions of IS 732. So if you add IoT-based device in your system, the IoT-based device can monitor all these parameters by default itself only 24/7. So there is no need of our electrical inspector being also, but what is our role? What is our role? How the IoTs work basically? The IoT offers the 24/7 monitoring of electrical parameters as per IS 732. The essence of the IoT-based device is that it can store the data at clouds, okay, and the data which was stored on the clouds. So it is very easy for us to evaluate all this data particularly. In case of any electrical hazards, in case of any casualties, in case of any overload or short circuits, we can evaluate the data which was stored in the IoT-based. So the IoT-based device enables us to evaluation for the data. Most of the time, it is very difficult to come to the conclusion the fire which was happened, what are the reasons, whether it is due to electrical short circuit or any other reasons. So the data which was stored through the IoT-based device is which may be helpful for evaluation of the cause of the electrical hazards. Basically, the IoT-based is a very smart device.
Mr. Konde, sorry to interrupt you, but I think we have to finish off in the next couple of minutes. So
Yeah.
complete your slides fast.
Yeah. So this is basically the simple do's and do's for the citizens. Basically, this workshop or all these particular programs for the citizens only. So these are the very simple tips of what the citizens should do. Do use the equipment of the ISMR only. So if you go through all the do's and do nots, so definitely one must really understand what to do and what not to do basically. So there are we have summarized all these issues. If you can download only, and we can implement accordingly. The next
PPT.
The next PPT is about the lift safety particularly, and we have actually incorporated particularly the fire lifts and the fire evacuation lifts. As you know that as far as the Mumbai is concerned, you know that our local train is the first lifeline of the Mumbai city. So likewise, the lift is the second lifeline of the Mumbai city. Without lift, we can't do anything else. So this is very important aspect, and what we ensure that for us every lift matters. So I want that every lift which are using must be a safe lift. One should feel that we are traveling through a safe lift only, and to ensure the safety of this lift, it is our responsibility as a Chief Lift Inspector of the state government. It is my responsibility to ensure that every lift is a safe lift. So these are the various types of lift. You are more aware of the passenger lifts particularly. What are the features of the passenger lift? The passenger lift basically depends upon the number of person, 4 person, 6 person, 8 person, okay. And basically thumb rule is that the weight of the persons. So for the evaluation purpose, for the design purpose, we consider it as 68 kg per person. Okay. All the parameters other design parameter depends upon the weight of the car itself only. Yeah.
I would request for the mic to be brought in, because without the mic, then it doesn't get recorded. So would you wait? We will have the introductions. Okay? Thank you.
Then the second is the good come passenger lift. There is other features of the goods exclusively used for the goods itself only. Then passenger come stretcher lift. Particularly in the hospitals, this lift is much required. So what are the dimensions of particularly passenger come stretcher lift? What is the clear minimum dimensions one should have? So it is very difficult otherwise to carry the patients on the stretcher itself only. It's stuck up somewhere else when you enter the patient into the lift itself only. The home lift, now particularly in the multi-story buildings itself only and in the individual bungalows, now there is a trend going on to have a lift, have an independent lift in their bungalows itself only. So the concept of home lift. So what are the features of the home lift? And you see that particularly as far as the home lift is concerned, one of the major concerns is that the passenger carrying capacity should not be more than 4 person. Okay, and the rated speed restricted up to 0.2 meter per second. The speed of the home lift shall restricted up to the 0.2 meter per second. Okay. Then automotive lifts, particularly to carry your cars and automotives particularly. So we have incorporated the specifications for the automatic lift also. Then the main fireman lift, the topic for our discussions. As far as our lift act and rules are concerned, where the building height, if it is more than 24 meters, particularly in the UDCPR of the Mumbai region itself only, one should have the provisions of the fireman lift. So what are the features of the fireman lifts? Fire emergency operating features that can be activated in case of emergency only. And this is only for the fireman person, not for me, not for you. Only for the fireman person to handle the emergency in case of fire. Okay, this is exclusively for the fireman person. That's why the name itself is the fireman lift. Now these are the features of the fireman lift. What are the minimum dimensions of the fire lift? What is the capacity of the fireman lift? What are the specifications of the allied switch gears, particularly the landing doors and the car doors? All it should be the fireman lift means it is a fire retardant. Particularly all the car doors, landing doors and car doors should be a fire retardant of 1 hour fire rating at 400 degrees centigrades. Okay. Then fire lift shall work at about the 1 meter per second. The speed is also one of the major features of the fireman lift. So I have to enable the fire servicemen to reach the top floor within a minimum of time. Okay, with no time delay for the rescue operations itself only. So it should have a emergency backup for the generator also. So it requires, because in case of any casualty took place, so there is a disconnection of the fire, regular supply itself only. So the fireman lift must have the provisions of the standby supply through generators with EMF panels. Okay, particularly the fireman lift should have the provision of trapdoor also. If the fireman people are inside the car, in case of any casualty, it is very difficult if something was gone wrong. So the trapdoor is required for the evacuation of the fireman person also. Trapdoor is situated on the top of the car itself only. So these are the basic all the features of the fireman lift. Then particularly sequence of operation of fireman lift. With the help of the fireman switch, once you operate the fireman switch, so what will happen? Particularly the lift come on the ground floor itself only. That is returned to the evacuation floor, and the lift will be run in the full control of the fireman lift. Okay, if the fireman switch operate and the lift comes on the ground floor, so it will respond only to the fireman. It will not respond to the passenger from the outside. If the passenger come there and he tried to operate the car itself only, so the passenger will not, that lift will not respond to the passenger. The purpose of fireman lift is only to help the fireman to reach the upper floor in case of emergency. Fireman lift is not being used for the rescue purposes. It is not advised to use normal passengers lift or the fireman lift in case of the fire emergency for the evacuation purpose. Now again, the second is the fire evacuation lift. Previously in our act and rules, we have not incorporated the fire evacuation lift itself only. Now, as far as in the Mumbai region only, we have started in the UDCPR itself. There is a provision of that. The building height, if it goes more than 70 meters and above, so one should have the mandatory provision of the fire evacuation lift for the evacuation of the passenger, for the evacuation of all the persons. Okay, in case of any casualty, in case of any emergency. So we have we have introduced our Maharashtra lift escalators and moving act 2017, but our rules are under preparations. Okay, our rules are pending with the LNJD for want of their approval. Once the rules are framed, so definitely all the provisions of the fire evacuation lift become mandatory. We have already annexed all the specifications of the fire evacuation lift, of what should be the specification of the fire evacuation lift. So basically the key features of the fire evacuation lift, that the fire evacuation lift shall be provided additionally other than regular non-fire lift. Capacity of fire evacuation lift shall be minimum 845 to 1000 kg per kg, that is along 15% passenger lift. Then fire evacuation lift shall be housed in a separate core having smoke check lobby with opening on each floor. So this is a additional requirement as far as the fire evacuation lift is concerned. So this provision is must as far as this lift is concerned. Then in case of any casualty, okay, the two-way communication system is must in the fire evacuation lift. Okay, and all the particularly all the again as per the fireman lifts, all the doors and car doors and landing doors having the features of the fire retardant with a low smoke, okay, complying with the relevant BSI standards. So all the fire retardant features must be there. Okay, the minimum internal space of the fire evacuation lift, that is be 2.3 meters by 2.3 meters. So minimum, this is a minimum space which is required for the fire evacuation lift. Okay. So there are the various safety provisions in a lift system only. Okay, the car safety gears. So one should not fear while traveling through the lift that whether it is safe or not. Already we have inherent safety features in the lift itself only, that it take care of all the different cause of the failure, particularly the car safety failure. All of a sudden, if the car travel, okay, free fall of the lift car, so this safety can be taken care of by this car safety gears. Then the speed governor. So basically, it governs the real-time speed of the car. The speed of the car is governed by all the speed governor systems, that it should not exceed the 120% of above the normal speed. Then ARD. So this is one of the important element of particularly the lift itself only. The ARD, automatic rescue device. In case of power failure, you know that in most of the time when you travel to the lift, the power gate fails. So the ARD come into the pictures. So by the virtue of ARD, immediately the lift will settle down in the nearest landing. Okay, the lift, the doors open and the person can inside the car, the person can be step out. The ARD is a battery operated device basically, so it may fails to operate in case of battery get discharged. So the frequent maintenance of battery is also needed in done. So okay, the ARD is one of the most important features in the overload safety. Oh, this safety is also very important. You might have heard that once the lift gets overloaded, okay, you heard the beep sound. Okay, it so shows that your lift gets overloaded. So these safety features are incorporated. Then car door safety. Okay, it activated through infrared sensors. Sensors are there, full length, full sensors are there. Okay, it ensures reopening of doors. If you stand between the doors of the lift, okay, the lift will not operate by virtue of all the infrared door sensors. Then the door lock safety. So these are buffer.
Yeah,
so
Mr. Konde, I think let's complete it within the next half a minute because there are two more speakers to come.
Yeah. So all these are the features of the safety features. What are the legislative provisions? So this is our certifications issued by our department. These certifications we are issuing through the blockchain only. We are having the QR code only. If we can verify the authenticity of our documents, if we can scan our documents, so we can judge that this certificate issued by our department. Okay, so we can verify the genuineness of these certificates. Our is the first state to issue such type of certifications through blockchain. Okay. So these are the various tips. If somebody trapped in the lift, so what are the precautionary measures has to be taken? So these are all the lift safety tips, do's and do nots. Do not overload the elevators. Then do not jump in the elevators. And how to deal with the children accompanied by adults. Okay, always clean the door seals and all that. Okay, particularly this, if you carry any pets in the lift itself, only which type of safety is there. Be careful while traveling with your pets in the lift. So these are all the do's and do nots. Okay. If you observe all these do's and do nots, so I think anybody can travel in a safety lift in a safe manner. So what are the responsibility of the owners and societies particularly? So responsibility of the society owners just to have a periodical maintenance by virtue of annual maintenance contract. Okay, this periodical maintenance must be carried out by the authorized lift contractors only. Don't allow any other person or don't allow any other unauthorized persons for the maintenance of your lift. Allow only the authorized lift contractors for the maintenance, annual maintenance contract. And in our act and rule itself only, we have make it mandatory. It is mandatory to have the annual maintenance contract for the smooth and easy operation and safe operations of the lift. Responsibility to the lift contractor must do carefully all the safety trials, okay, and must maintain the lift in a periodical manner and take all the precautionary measures to maintain the lift in a safe working conditions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Konde. Excellent presentation, very comprehensive. You have done justice to the subject, and I am really sorry to make you rush through the presentation, but we have two more presentations coming. One is now Mr. Rathore, who is the Chief Engineer Building Proposals. As Mr. Pardeshi said right in the beginning, building proposal is building approval to the building plans is extremely important. But I want to underline another point. The problem occurs when the post-completion, the retrofitting is done, or new interiors are done, new AC loads are done. So under the garb of tenantable repairs, but there is no provision whereby the chief engineer or his staff can check the tenantable repairs. So I'm sure Mr. Rathore will throw some lights on that as well. Over to you, Mr. Rathore.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. With the permission of all dignitaries, honorable dignitaries on the dais, our two ex-municipal commissioners are there, our ex-additional commissioner is there, chief electrical inspector of Maharashtra state is also there, chief fire officer of Thane is also there, and Chief Fire Officer of Mumbai. First of all, I am very much thankful for Mrs. Malkani for inviting us for this session. This is very useful session. Actually, as a planning authority, we are approving the building proposals. First of all, we are concentrating on the access of to the plot. Then what are the mandatory requirements for approval of the buildings from fire safety point of view? What we are now, conducting various meetings for one of the committee appointed by government of Maharashtra on man-made disasters, which is headed by our Pardeshi sir, who is municipal commissioner. Earlier, our focus was on how to make the building safe from man-made disasters. But our focus is now totally going on the electric safety. See, we are conducting the fire audit of every building, structure audit of every building on annual basis. But as far as electrical audit is concerned, we are not having any mechanism as such. So through this committee, we are planning to recommend to government to have an electric audit on this. So Pardeshi sir has rightly pointed out, we are planning to outsource the chartered electrical engineers to do this audit on regular basis. And there are so many electrical engineers available in this field, so they will also get the employment. And because of all this short circuit, electrical short circuit, most of the fire happens. As brought out, 70% of the fire has happened because of this electrical short circuit. Some not because of gas cylinders, then any other nuisance made by the other things, such as many other things I can say. So what we are observing as a planning authority, it is our duty. Actually, we have framed this DCPR, Development Control Rules, Promotion Rules for this Mumbai 2034. We have sanctioned the development plan also for this Mumbai. We are having our various offices for approval of these building plans. Most of the high-rise buildings, they are appointing the MEP consultants, mechanical, electrical and plumbing consultants. Most of the real estate stakeholders, they are appointing, they are taking care. But however, these are all post-building completion, whatever issues are happening, they are post-building completion. Maybe as rightly pointed out by, because of overloading of, electricity, then installation of more AC units and running more, so many things. So nowadays, whatever is required from our end, through this committee or from the various experiences we are facing from our fire department also, we'll take the inputs of all in our committee and we will propose it to government. Whatever is to be covered in whatever is covered and what is proposed to be covered, so that we can take care of this. So I think I won't take much of your time. It's already electric. Most of the part is covered by all the dignitaries. So I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rathod. I think many questions can be taken regarding the subject dealt with by you. Now I hand over the subject to Mr. Mandke, who was there in the first social sanchar on fire safety as well. And the story starts with, fire prevention. So we have gone through the electrical causes of fire, but at the end of the day, it remains the responsibility of the fire officers how to ultimately respond to a fire situation. So I think Mr. Mandke will do justice to that part of the discussion.
Thank you, sir. Dignitaries on the dais. First of all, I should say thank you very much to V Sanchar that they have called me for the second time for this seminar. So thank you very much for the we can. I'll not take much more time because I'm more focused on the interactions, what are the questions which are waiting from the gathering. That is the first point. Second point is that almost all the points has been taken care of by Mr. Konde, and he has focused on the fire prevention side, that why if there should not be a fire. But in case if there will be a fire, what we should do. Precisely he has mentioned about the fire lift and fire evacuation lift. But if you'll refer the UDCPR and the DCPR, both the things, DCPR 2034 in the Mumbai and in the rest of the Maharashtra, it is the UDCPR. If you'll refer the sections of 9.2 and 50 of the, this is DCPR 2034, the provisions for the fire lift, fire escape chute, fire tower, and the fire evacuation lift. These 4 sections are very important where he has focused it. As far as concerned with the technical parameters of the fire lift, the Konde has precisely mentioned. But the most important thing what he has not mentioned is that I would like to highlight you. The objective of this fire lift is that if there will be a fire on the topmost floor, in the scarcity of the land in the city of Mumbai or any pockets, there is no other option except to go vertically. And if there is a major fire on the topmost floor, the fire lift is the only concept or the only mechanism where the firefighters, they can use for this lift for the transportation of their machineries, manpower to reach on the seat of fire. So this is the most important objective of this fire lift, having the fireman switch on the ground floor and the firefighters has to operate that switch and then only we have to operate that lift. If fireman switch will not now be there or fire lift would not now have been there, then Mr. Manrekar, Mr. Warik and myself, we would have been totally helpless for this matter in case of fire lift, in absence of fire lift. The second point is, which is most important thing about the fire escape chute, which is, I think this point is missing, which is most important thing. Sir also has mentioned about the evacuation is the most important than the firefighting. And in case of fire, if we would like to evacuate the topmost priority being the evacuation, the fire escape chute is one of the most important provision which has been made in the UDCPR as well as the DCPR 2034. And the fire escape chute, the provisions what should be has to be made by the developer, architect and in the architecture plans that has been given. Accordingly, the vertical transportation for the life safety is being precisely mentioned in the fire escape chute. Now the third point is alternatively, if the fire escape chute is not given, then the fire tower or the fire evacuation lift. This is the most important thing of the provision. If the fire tower is there, because which is the latest amendment in the NBC along with the UDCPR and DCPR, in which the core lobby has been provided and in which smoke check doors has been provided with the fire lift which has been installed in that lobby and which serves the purpose of the fire lift as well as which will be an easy access where the firefighters can go on the top floor and where the firefighters will work in a more safe manner to reach on the seat of the fire. In one incident I would like to narrate here, sir. In first day of the Diwali in Thane, that is in 2009, there was a major fire on the 12th floor, and while fighting that fire, the 6 firefighters, they lost their life while operating this lift. So this is the most fire tower concept has been introduced, which is the most important for all of us firefighters. And if we can use it in case of emergency, really it will be useful. And then the last come for the fire evacuation lift. What Konde has precisely mentioned about the fire evacuation lift. in which all the parameters are almost all same, except the size and capacity of that thing. And the one more important point is about the alternative source of supply. And that has to be common for the fire lift as well as for the fire evacuation lift. I think this will suffice the purpose, no matter if prevention is better than cure. But if there will be a fire, all the firefighters, Mr. Warik, Mr. Manjrekar and myself, we should be prepared to face the emergencies, and these are the provisions. The most important thing is that, last at least, that the maintenance of this system is the most important thing. Someone has mentioned that we recommend all the things. We peoples go for the new technology, new machines, and everything new go for it. But the maintenance issue comes, then we fail to operate these machines. Thank you very much.
Thank you for very, very crisp submission by you, Mr. Manke. And I think we have forgotten that Mr. Warik is also here. We have not acknowledged his presence. He's the CFO of MIDCA and is also the Director of State Fire Services. So his presence is extremely important. Now over to Mrs. Balkani to run the Q&A.
Thank you, Mr. Jain. Mr. Warik, thank you for being here. Yes, that is true. Because ultimately the quietest person becomes the pivot amongst all the others who are here, all the other officers of the fire department, I meant. We now open up for questions. Now, quite a few questions had come in prior to the session, and I thank our Jai Hind College students who fanned out to get the pulse of the people and had been checking with citizens as to what sort of questions people would like to ask. These questions were on passed to the speakers. So in the presentations that have been made so far, many of the answers to these questions have been taken into account, and therefore it has been answered. Now, there were a few. I would request that the mics may be please kept ready. Questions from the audience, please, and then we will take, I think a lot of live questions have come. Could we have, yes please, first one from the audience here.
Thank you so much.
Yes, yes, it's on. Please carry on.
It was the most wonderful session today from every single person who was here and who gave so much of understanding to us on this such a safety matter. Also, the aspect is most of it was coordinated by the new buildings and infrastructure which will come into being. And that is why you have safety lifts and other lifts and fire lifts, whereas 70–80% of the structures in Bombay, in Mumbai, are ancient, old, and absolutely over their age. There is no even question of 1 square foot space to do most of that, what has been guided. So for that, what is the kind of guidance which can be given to people across, whether it is, you name the area, Kalwa Devi, you name it, anywhere and everywhere, it's the same matter which needs to be very thoroughly looked into, and there is no space even for extra, staircases, lifts providing, and the safety factor for that. That is what main question I thought of.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Pradeshi, would you like to lead with this?
No, I think you got it right, and that is also the main reason why fires are taking place. But in our presentation, Mr. Konde's presentation, what was mentioned, see his last part, across the world, I have been on this disaster scenario, and the last part of it is rescue and relief, which grabs global attention. And that's not important, by the way, because we should not reach that stage. We should be in the quadrant of not urgent, but important task. What is that? What he mentioned. Ensuring that all the wiring, the meter box, the earthing, and the fire appliances, and the load calculation, this is in order, and it is not stepped up year after year, as is happening. Now, how do you do that? There is a governance mechanism. It's not the rules. The governance mechanism is there an annual system of audit, which was mentioned by Mr. Sunil Rathod, and that audit annually has to have some provisions, because if the provision is that we can switch off the electricity to a building which has not been audited, everybody will get it done. So it's quite simple that we ensure that electrical installations, wiring, earthing, is in order and kept that way year after year. That's all that you need to do to prevent at least 70% of the fires. Then 30% will still take place, and for that we need the effective steps which have been pointed out by Mr. Manke and also by Mr. Varik. But we should be in the 30% quadrant. That is those steps which we cannot prevent. Today we are in the 100% quadrant where fires which can be prevented are occurring. So that at least we should stop.
Yes, I think one of the points that I would like to also add to this is that the chartered, is the mic on? Yeah. The chartered electrical engineers, if that list is provided and we could publish that, not there. Yes, right. So, so we have to figure out, 1 minute, sir. The mic has to reach you because this is now a public interaction. So therefore, we don't want anything to be missed out. Can the mic be given to the gentleman there, please?
Sir, as you rightly said, you are going into the process of identifying the engineers for chartered safety engineers. Actually, regarding myself, I am basically a hardcore electrical engineer. I am energy and safety auditor. Last more than 35 years I have been in this field. But what I find this CSAC process what you have started, it is not that transparent also. Last time I also appeared for this exam and you have declared only result of 4 or 5 names, that's all. This is not the way any exam is conducted or results are declared. You should at least put how many marks people have obtained, where they have gone wrong. So at least we should know that, but that is not there in the process. I have written letter to him, I mailed, but there is no reply on it. Under RTI, I also asked the reply, but still that there is no reply on this. So overall, this process don't seem to be transparent. That's what.
Yeah. So we know this issue. This has been taken note of. We are doing everything possible so that not 1, 2, 3, 4. There will be lakhs of certified engineers because we need that many. Only thing is that we need to devise that system. This is the first time. You should give them credit that Maharashtra is the only state which is allowing private chartered engineers to enter their arena. They did that.
Andhra, they have already implemented.
No, they said that it's only Maharashtra which has done it. Only now we need to ensure that the numbers are proportionate to the number of buildings so that it can be done and there is a proper accreditation. See, if low quality people get in, that's also not good because then they will discredit and then we'll again go back. So that system is evolving. I think in the next 5 to 6 months, we should have this straightened out. And they are doing that.
Okay,
so another
1 minute. We will have to give the question to others, and there are live questions. Dr. Monga, please, the mic can please be taken. I will come back to you, don't worry. Just 1 second. Live questions have come in, I think, because our online viewers, we must give, otherwise we will have... you will also meet with the panel once the session is over. Yes, please. I think it is readable. Who would like to take this question, please? Mr. Manke? Mr. Manke, please give your point.
The evacuation has come only for the injured, according to the lift expert, the fireman lift.
Just 1 second, please. Do you want me to read out the... yes.
Yeah. Hello. Yes, for the old buildings where there is no fireman lift or the fireman lift is not working, I can put it in another way also, the existing, that in that case they should use the staircase only for the evacuation. The second point is that the staircase is the only way for the means of evacuations. And third is that the lift is not mean for the evacuations. Lift is only means for to use by the firefighters and along with their machineries to reach on the topmost floors.
Okay, anything that you wish to add, Mr. Rathod, to this? No? Okay.
That you can say.
That you can say. Yes, it's on.
Yeah. Fireman lift provision is came in 2018 actually instead of 2022 as you mentioned. And there are so many approaches granted for evacuation, fire evacuation lifts.
See, one small intervention on this. Though it came in 2001 and the buildings which have come up after 2001 should compulsorily, but the lady's question is on one point that suppose there was a building came before, what to do with them? That's why his answer is right. And if some retrofitting is possible in such buildings, retrofitting, that is after to provide for this, we should think about that technical solution in future.
I think
And
that's
one more
it.
thing, sir, fireman lift, this concept is a very old concept, first of all. This is not 2018 or 2002. The fireman lift is a very old concept. So I had precisely mentioned the example of 2009 also.
Thank you, Mr. Manke. Okay, any other live questions? Then I will come back to, you. We will take one more question. Just 1 second, Captain Malkani. Wheelchair, another disabilities. This is quite, yes, please.
Yes, it's a question is very nice. But if you'll see the today's scenario, first of all, there is no standard SOPs which has to be followed for the evacuation of the wheelchair or handicap or the pregnant ladies in precise topmost priority what we gives it. The second point in this case, what we should understand is that who are the first respondent. The third point is that the first respondents are the residents or the occupants of that building itself. And the fourth and most important point is that the occupants of residents has to be well trained, not only well trained, but they have to perform the mock drills to see the performance of the residents or occupants, they are doing their job in a proper manner or not. I don't know how many buildings in the city of Mumbai or Maharashtra, how many of we have done the mock drills in the midnight, because that is the only one situations where all of us we are in a sleepy mode. And where in that case, if there will be a fire, then this practice has to be continued to have the mock drill in the midnight also. And this will suffice the purpose for the handicapped, wheelchair people, pregnant ladies, senior citizens, or any other persons. Thank you.
Mr. Warwick, I'll just give the mic. Can the mic please be given?
From the evacuation point of view, there are so many layers added to it. It is how much old building it is, what material has gone in. So compartmentation is done, segregation of risk, basically what Khode Saab has said. Separate ducts should be there for electrical ones, fire ones, and other services like gas lines are coming up. So segregation of this risk is more important, and where your staircase is located, what is the travel distance from the farthest point to the nearest staircase. So these all are very much important. And as far as the safety is concerned, the fire tower, which is recommended in National Building Code Part 4 in 2016, which has got fire lift also and fire escape staircase also, and they are all pressurized, so that no heat and smoke can enter into that shaft in case of emergency because of the higher pressure. And it is a safe passage for the occupant for the evacuation purpose. Also for the guided evacuation, as it can be used by the firefighter for carrying out the evacuation, guided evacuation. Lift should not be used in case of fire, but if the firefighters or the first responders say it is a safe and all backups are given as Mr. Khode has explained, so that can be utilized for the guided evacuation of the occupants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warwick. Yes.
Yes, sir, good evening, everyone. I would add one more to Warwick Sahib and Manke Sahib in this. There are two terms called ultimate safety and comparative safety. So these terms are mentioned in the NBC very well. Ultimate safety is when I am coming out from the building, I am evacuating myself, and I am on the road, I am safe. But what is comparative safety? For that comparative safety, what we have is called refuge areas. Refuge areas. So this comparative safety is like when I cannot come out of the building, I can go very well to that refuge area and stay there for a while, wherein we can assist you to the evacuations. So all these wheelchair-based, differently able people, senior citizens can take care of these refuge areas, and they can very well assisted and taken out of the building. Sir, thank you.
Yes, I think the mic there.
This is Shreyash. I'll just like to add a few points which Palande sir has also currently said. Because there are old buildings prior 2001, which are 20-storied also. I'm talking about Thane. I'm coming from Thane, so I've seen how the life has been. I'm talking about Saket. You are well aware of because you have played a vital role in the Thane development from a fire perspective. So there is no refuge area. These are old constructed high-rise towers. There are no refuge areas. In such situations, there was a question, online question, which stated how a disabled or a pregnant lady will be got to a safer place. So there are chairs which are evacuation chairs which are there, which helps in order. No doubt, most of them are made outside India, but we should start having these chairs made in India also. These are costly when you try to import them. But yes, there are chairs wherein you can save life. But it is only through the staircase.
These chairs are easily available. Perhaps you can share.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Mann.
See, I think, Mr. Shreyas, you have mentioned the 3-4 points. One is that where in the buildings where there is no refuge areas, first of all, the refuge areas concept has come in 1992 in Mumbai and then 1995 in the Thane. So if you are talking about the buildings which are prior to this period, then there will not be definitely refuge area first. Second, these are the buildings how to be evacuated by the handicap or these peoples. Third is that the equipments, machines, what you have mentioned it, yes, this we can recommend it for that retrospective or what we can say that the retrofitting of that buildings, or this is an additional equipments what we can recommend it in that building. But the issue comes of that, if the authority will recommend it either in the state of Maharashtra by Warik or by in the Mumbai by Mr. Manjekar, whether that can be accepted by the society or not. When we recommend something else, the issue comes who will spend the money. And this is the facts we have to mention, we have to accept it on grassroots level. For a simple maintenance of a system also, the society people, they don't want to spend the money.
That's quite the truth.
Yeah, that's a fact.
I think there is a question here. Please give the mic here, please. This will come from the society point of view also, since the society came up. Yes, Captain Malkan.
This is a request for Mr. Pardeshi. In the matter of compliance by the society, committee, etc., please issue a circular from an appropriate authority that these electrical compliances must be observed. Because without this, as a chairman, I say that if I propose it, there'll be 6 members who will say it's too expensive, why do we need it, we haven't had anything, etc. So to request you to please send that thing. Aji.
So basically,
yes, it's on.
Yeah, basically, just like the provisions which Mr. Warik mentioned and he mentioned, they're mandated under law. So non-compliance can lead to including jail. But the provisions of electricity right now and their maintenance thereafter doesn't have the force of law. They have guidance and they have some mandatory provisions which are inspectable at installation point. But thereafter, no. So one of the tasks which our committee, as Mr. Sunil Rathod said, and Mr. Warik is also our member, we are trying to do is to bring you as chairman that force of law which is not there now, but which will come, that just like you have to provide for an electric lift safety certificate every year or every 2 years, you will have to do that. So let that come as a rule provision, then you will get that law. Right now, other than 11 kV buildings, that is buildings above a certain high load, there is no legal requirement that you have to. It's guidance. And it is not enforceable by any penalty. So this is the problem. So we will try to do it. That's one of the tasks of the committee.
That would be most helpful.
Well, I hope that...
Mr. Konde, one request. You have given, regarding the lift, the do's and don'ts. There were 2 pages which had come up, you know. Can we get a printout of these
Yes,
things?
let me just clarify this, that we have had the presentation, the do's and don'ts, etc. This whole presentation will be uploaded on our portal. So you will be able to download it, you will all be able to. But apart from that, it is our commitment that the do's and don'ts, both of the electrical part, the first presentation, as well as that of the lift, will be culled out and will be in public domain and wide circulation. And for that, I need my young volunteers, Jai Hind College students. That is your task. You are... Yes. because actually the Jai Hind College students, many of them are ambassadors of safety. They have been given that designation, so they will work on that. And I have the student council here, so I am putting it in public domain and recording it, that our young volunteers will take this forward, not only for the safety of all of us oldies, but for their own safety and taking it forward. So that's one part. There are other questions. I think the mic may please be sent this side.
I have one question.
Yes. Can we? Yes, Mr. Umtal.
Yeah, I have one question for Mr. Konde. Okay.
Yes.
We heard that there are, other states who are making bus duct, okay, as a compulsion beyond 3 or third floor or 3-story building. So are we looking for such provision in Mumbai? Because there are there are high rises which are implementing the bus duct for power distribution. But if you say low rises, or maybe not low rises, but buildings which are 22-story or 15-story, they are not, doing it.
See, what is the capital investment for the electrical components? Okay, if you see the total capital investment of the one building, for example, it is a 100 crore building. Okay, so the capital investment for the electrical infrastructure is come around only 2%. Okay. But the architect and the builder, they are don't go beyond the 2%. Okay, so it has to be made mandatory as far as the some limits are there. For example, building more than 20 meters and above, the provision has to be mandatory. The provision of fire evacuation lift is mandatory. So like that only, the provision of aluminum bus banding should be mandatory. Okay, in case of, or as a preventive measures. So I think the aluminum bus banding system will be more cheaper than the copper cable and the copper all these things. Definitely. Are we looking for making it mandatory? So I think you can make it mandatory through the UDC, or you can make the provisions in the itself only. So you can make it in a mandatory way.
You were, Mr. Pai, wanted to ask a question. Yes, please.
I had no question. I have to make suggestion on the presentation of Shri Khonde Sahib and Praveen sir. There are two things I have to suggest. Whenever there are any fires, the postmortem is done by fire department and electrical inspector. But it so happens that fire department reaches earlier, electrical inspector is yet to reach, but still there is an announcement that fire is due to electrical short circuit. So actually it should have been other way around. That is one suggestion which you should look into it. Second suggestion, now we are going for a chartered electrical safety engineer to not substitute but supplement the Khonde Sahab's work and his staff. Yeah. So it is supplementing them. But as of now, what has happened actually, there is a provision in Indian electricity rules and regulations in old one as well as electricity rules 2003 that whosoever carries out the electrical installation has to certify his installation from the point of safety and its quality and workmanship. That provision is not been implemented in Maharashtra as of today. All the licenses are supposed to release the supply only after receiving this test report. But it has been not made mandatory, it has made optional, and the user himself has to certify as a self-certification. How does he know? He is not a technical person. So that matter is very much required. And third suggestion is that there is no check on it. That's why I am making it as a suggestion. That any new building which comes up, there are unlicensed people carry out the work. Not only contractor, but the workers also. And there is no check. I'm aware that it is impossible to keep track on every building that whether there is, but if the electrical contractor himself, if is not licensed contractor, and the builders want contractors who carry out in the lowest possible rate and the lowest possible quality of material. So that is the reason why such electrical accidents are happening more and more, number is increased. By the way, I am Anil Gachke. I am the General Secretary of Electrical Contractor Association of Maharashtra.
The mic may please be given at the back to Dr. Monga, please.
Hello. Good evening, panel. Just correct me if I'm wrong, you can't use fireman lift, which is in the lobby, if there's a water ingression because of sprinklers. So it is redundant for any fireman to use it, point one. Point two, fire chute has no standards. Correct me if I'm wrong. Fire chute does not help infants, pets, differently able people or pregnant women to come down. It is the most unsafe way to be evacuated because people of old age or whatever cannot use it because they have to come down every 5-story buildings down. Regarding fire tower is there, it is a more expensive thing to have a fire tower, then put a fire lift inside it. And again, the fire lift is in a NBC code itself. And NBC is made by man only, and we can always upgrade ourselves. NBC clearly states that NBC is only expecting you to do these things, but not restricting you to improve your safety point of view completely. And most importantly, that fire evacuation lift or any elevators comes under energy department, where they understand the evacuation of people and other persons, especially being handicapped and buildings increasing their heights more than 200 meters, 230 meters in Mumbai itself, and now also in Maharashtra. So fire evacuation lift becomes the most safest, fastest and quickest way for firemen and for the occupants of the building to be evacuated.
What is your question? You are doing the comparison of all the three things versus fire evacuation lift?
Yes, sir.
Or you are insisting?
I am correcting the thing, fire lift cannot be used. And many will say, we can use fire lift. Earlier when fire lift were used, sprinklers were there. No, the sprinkler came just now as compulsory. So agar pani aa gaya ek baar lobby mein, no lift can be used. So it is a very risk to my firefighter's life.
What is your question that we should not use fire lift, fire chute and fire tower, and instead of all these three, we should
I'm asking which is much more safer to be used.
Fire tower is a much more safer.
So I agree with you.
Yes.
If a fire tower is much safer.
Let me, Deepak Munga, just listen. See, fire tower is the most safe area. Second is that these are the provisions of the law, that is UDCP or DCR, that is second. And third, which will suffice the purpose of entering the smoke, what rightly Mr. Wariki has mentioned, that it will, and the more loss of life is because of the suffocation.
Totally agree.
Not by the fire. So totally fire tower is the place or is the area, core area, where the fire lift is installed in the core area, along with the staircase.
Isn't it more expensive because sir was trying to reduce the cost? Isn't it more expensive?
No, but let me intervene. So let's try to close all the issues that you just put together. So you're right that fire chute is not that question which was asked capable to take, let's say, handicapped persons down. So that's okay. And though the new provisions exist for fire tower, the old buildings where majority of the people live and will continue to live for another 100 years, because most of the buildings where people are living are already built. The new buildings are a small percentage of they may have the fire towers, but the old buildings, it's impossible, neither the space. So what do we do? So that's why we keep going back and back, that the presentation made by Mr. Konde, not his last part by the way, that's the problem, you catch only his last part. And that's why I wanted to just take it out totally. Fire towers, fire lifts, all these things are fancy things, sorry. The first part are so easy, but we don't do the easy things. And we continue to focus on things like, oh, this fire tower, that lift will come. I know they are important, but where can we put them? We are going to put them in new buildings when the new investment comes. How many people are going to live there? 10%. 90% people like us are all going to live in the old buildings. How do we safeguard them? We safeguard them by doing very simple things, all of which are possible, very cost effective, but we have to do them year after year, and which we don't do. That is why we are suffering. And if we do that, hopefully we will not have the need to take that handicapped lady down chute. Yes. Because figures show that 70% of the fires are because of that. If we stop 70%, we have achieved a huge reduction.
Thank you, Mr. Pardeshi, for giving a reality check. Thank you very much. We will take that one live question and we will then have to close the session because as it is, we have been... I will come back to that. I'll just... yes, please. Here we are. If the utility gives a 30 MP. I think the question is for Mr. Konde.
Yes.
Please.
Mr. Konde can, and you should answer.
It seems to be the maloperations of the MCB particularly. So basically, this maloperation takes place because of ingress current on your LED lumination. Okay, so are they unaudible other than productive, so they are unaudible?
Well, in fact, I'd like to supplement this question.
Yes.
I used to be in the PWD building, I mean the government
Mr.
building,
Jain, the mic.
where the MCB was installed. And whenever I used to trip, I mean the electricity stopped, the person I used to contact, he said, just wait for 30 seconds, restart. Just put it up, that's it, which is not good. But I think this is how it happens in real life. So idea is that whether MCB is really safe or not. I think ultimately we all as a citizens, whether we are in the authority or in government or whatever, we are all citizens. It is our responsibility to understand it is our life and safety is in our hand ultimately. Otherwise we'll keep on doing jugaad, you know, putting that matchstick in the loose plug and, you know, which is the most inflammable. Okay. So
I think, Mr. Jain, there are questions, and these questions now I will on pass to all the speakers for them to answer subsequently, and we have it published because we have already crossed way past our time. May I request you then, as moderator, to make a summary, and thereafter, Mr. Ranganathan, should you wish to add any point before the summary, or can Mr.
Before the summary.
Sorry, as you.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, okay. So,
Jain then,
see,
please.
frankly, I mean, Mr. Pardeshi is here and Mrs. Malkani, all three of us are doing this job of kind of highlighting the important areas. So rather than my repeating which speaker said what, I'll try to summarize what has been said today in last 2 hours. The first is if I say there are 5 mantras which have been enunciated here. One is prevention, which Mr. Pardeshi was very clear that prevention is better than cure. Unless we focus on prevention of accidents, no authority in the world can really come to our rescue. The second part is that of maintenance. Now we can have very sophisticated systems in place as per DCPR or maybe Fire Act or whatever CEA guidelines, but if you don't maintain it, then these are of no good, absolutely. And therefore the next question is that of inspection and preventive maintenance. Inspection is key, and to my mind, it should be self-inspection by the occupant, by the resident, you and me as a citizen, which is of absolute importance. See, other people are authority, they are helping you, supporting you. But in any case, inspections are important and systems are maintained in our system, in our society. Unless there is some kind of a sanction of law, nothing really happens. So inspections have to be carried out, but to expect fire brigade to inspect all our premises very regularly, or to inspect Mr. Konde and his team to visit us and inspect everything very frequently, I think is practically impossible or not practical. And therefore, on one hand, we should protect our system ourselves by some kind of self-audit which we need to deliberate, and I'll request Mr. Pardeshi also to think about it. What kind of a self-audit mechanism can be created to help the societies or the citizens? And the second part, rather than involving more authoritative people and making the whole system bureaucratic and, kind of affecting the lives of the citizens in terms of ease of living, we should have private citizens accredited as chief electrical safety inspectors or engineers. Of course, your exam is too tough. In fact, I had a discussion with the skill development department, and I raised this issue. And I think we can have a meeting under Mr. Pardeshi's chairmanship. I had a discussion with Director Technical Education, with even people who are managing ITAs, etc. I think let's make it somewhat practical. I'm not saying they dilute it, but make it a little more practical. So that, I think, is a better option, and Mr. Ranganathan had suggested in the very beginning that we can engage more licensed or accredited engineers. And the next point, which again, as I said, is a repetitive point, and with Mr. Ranganathan, with tremendous experience which he has at his disposal, in the very first opening remark, is the awareness creation, right, training, etc., of the most important stakeholders. Again, you and me. And I think in that context, today's event, today's social sanchar will go a long way in creation of awareness. But I think we should not stop here. We should continue our efforts with the help and guidance of people like Mr. Pradeshi, and of course, a fatherly figure of Mr. Ranganathan. We should continue this exercise further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. No, one moment. We can follow the conversation post the session. And also you don't have, without a mic. Yes, just wait. I'm giving you the mic, that's all. Can the mic be given, please?
That will be the last.
And that will be the last, please. We will have to conclude.
Jain sir, actually the examination stuff is one part of it. The failure rate is more in that chartered electrical safety engineering examination is because of the negative marks. That is the one reason why people are failing more in number, and outcome is very meager.
I think with that we can conclude. So please, may I take the opportunity to thank all of you, not only our panelists, our keynote speaker, Mr. Pardeshi, Mr. Jain, Mr. Konde, Mr. Rathod, Mr. Mandke. Mr. Mandke, you have to be our guide and mentor in many things, training part especially. And to all of you who are present, Mr. Manjrekar, I warmly thank you for being with us throughout, because I think you have been the silent spectator, because ultimately you have to pick up the pieces. So we have to make sure that your life becomes easier and not more difficult. Safety ultimately is on our own hands. Let's take that responsibility in whichever way we can. And I think we have got our officers who will help us to achieve it. Mr. Warwick, thank you for being with us throughout. And all our uniformed fire personnel who are there with you, Mumbai Fire Brigade, we are indeed very proud of our fire brigade, all the firemen who save us. But first we must also learn how to save ourselves. Thank you once again, and may I request all of you to be seated for a moment whilst we give our appreciative mementos to our speakers. Sumit, may I have the memento of Mr. Jain? Mr. Jain, please. Mr. Ranganathan, may I request you to please... Please hand over. On behalf of the Citizen Action Network and all of us here, because together we all are together. Mr. Ranganathan, please look. Yes. I must say one small thing over here. When I started all this work 2 decades plus ago, it was with this team, Mr. Ranganathan as Municipal Commissioner and Mr. Jain as Additional Municipal Commissioner. And absolutely, and we are so blessed in WeCan to have both of them. Mr. Ranganathan, of course, as our trustee, and Mr. Jain as our panel. So now we have to have...
Only one comment to make. I don't believe Mrs. Malkani is 2 decades old. How did that happen? How did you become 2 decades?
No, I'm not going back to the cradle. Maintenance. Mr. Jain said maintenance. I think the key word which we are taking away is maintenance. Whichever way you look at it, maintenance is the key. Okay, now it's my greatest pleasure to hand over a memento to Mr. Pardeshi. Mr. Vaswani, may I please invite you, the President of the Royal Bombay Yacht Club, on all our behalf to hand over to the memento to Mr. Konde. May I now invite my fellow trustee, Captain Malkani, please, to hand over the memento on all our behalf to Mr. Mandke. Mr. Ranganathan? No, come this side. Mr. Mr. Ranganathan, just photo. Yeah, done? Thank you. And may I have the memento of Mr. Rathod? You know, the BMC is our biggest partner. So everything starts from the BMC. So my great pleasure to hand over the memento to you, Mr. Rathod. Thank you once again, and please join us for some light refreshments. Just give us, sorry, just a minute. Captain Malkani, please come. Mr. Vaswani, please come. We just take one official photograph. Please come. Take the photo. I'll take.
Your energy level is inspirational.
Old is gold.
We are all on that path.
Ready? Why so serious? Smile karo. Smile, run, smile.
Just 1 second, one more photo. Dr. Monga, is Mr. Mehta, please, if you would please come and take a photo.
Also, and Varik also.
And Mr. Manjrekar, please come, and Mr. Varik, please join us for a photo. Yes, of course.
Please, please.
Come. Why not? Come along.
ये एनर्जी नहीं खड़े रहिए भाई.
Come on.
बीच में खड़े रहिए.
Captain, please come. Ashok.
बीच में आइए. उनको ब्लैंक आउट मत करिए. हाँ.
Yes, Abhishek.